The Practicing Mind, Developing Focus and Discipline in Your Life, by Thomas M. Sterner. Introduction. Imagine this for a moment. You're at a driving range on a cool evening. The air smells like freshly cut grass. You're part of a small group golf class, and a woman sitting next to you, a successful executive, sighs and says something that cuts right to the heart of a struggle we all know. She says, "I just want to wake up one morning and be able to play well." Have you ever felt that? That deep, nagging frustration of wanting to be good at something? An instrument, a sport, a new skill at work? But feeling crushed by the sheer weight of the practice it takes to get there? You just want the result, the product, without the messy, difficult, and often boring process. This feeling, my friend, is one of the biggest thieves of joy and progress in our lives. And for a long time, it was a mystery why some people seem to have superhuman discipline while the rest of us start with great enthusiasm, only to see it fizzle out. But what if I told you there's a secret to mastering any skill, not through gritting your teeth and forcing your way through it, but by learning to love the process itself? What if you could turn the very act of practicing into a form of peace, a refuge from the chaos of the world? Today, we're diving into a book that holds the key to this transformation. It's called The Practicing Mind by Thomas M. Sterner. This isn't just another book on discipline. Sterner is a fascinating man. For over 25 years, he was a concert piano technician, working with some of the most disciplined and demanding musicians on the planet. He's also an accomplished pilot, an archer, and a golfer. He didn't just study these ideas, he lived them under immense pressure. And in this summary, I'm going to share with you the profound, yet simple, framework he discovered. By the time we're done, you will understand the one mental shift that separates the eternally frustrated amateur from the patient and successful master. You will learn how to find joy in the journey, not just the destination, and unlock a level of focus and peace you may have thought was impossible. So, let's begin. Book summary. Let's start with a simple story, an ancient one that Thomas Sterner shares because it perfectly captures the state of most of our minds. Imagine a chariot being pulled by 4 powerful horses. In this story, the horses represent your mind, your thoughts, your impulses, your emotions. Now, there are 2 types of drivers. The first driver steps onto the chariot but has no hold on the reins. The horses run wild, pulling the chariot in 1,000 different directions, bumping along off the path, exhausting themselves and the driver. The driver is just holding on for dear life, a helpless passenger to his own mind. Does that sound familiar? Our minds are constantly multitasking, worrying about the future, replaying the past, jumping from one thought to the next. We drive our cars while listening to the radio, talking on the phone, and thinking about our to-do list. We're like that driver, exhausted and going nowhere in particular. But then there's the second driver. This driver steps onto the chariot and takes a firm, gentle hold of the reins. He directs the horses down a chosen path. The horse's energy is now focused, guided by the refined commands of the disciplined driver. The ride is smooth. They reach their destination with the least amount of effort and fatigue. This, right here, is the promise of the practicing mind. It's about becoming the second driver. It's about learning to take the reins of your own mind so that you can direct your energy where you want it to go. So, the big question is, how did we become the first driver? And more importantly, how do we become the second? Sterner argues that our entire culture trains us from a very young age to focus on one thing and one thing only, the product. The end result. Think about school. What matters most? The grade on the report card. It doesn't matter if you truly understood the material or enjoyed the process of learning. What counts is the A or the B. The grade, the product, defines your worth. An F student is a failure, an A student is excellent. This bottom-line belief gets drilled into us. Results are everything. This obsession with the product follows us into adulthood. In sports, we only celebrate the winner. In business, we fixate on the quarterly profit. In our personal lives, we tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds, or I'll be happy when I get that promotion, or I'll be happy when I can finally play this song perfectly." The problem with this mindset is that it makes the present moment, the only moment we ever truly have, into a nuisance. The process of getting to our goal feels like a frustrating obstacle course we have to endure. And because our goal is always in the future, we are never where we are. Our mind is constantly telling us, "You're not there yet. You're not good enough yet." This is why we get bored, impatient, and frustrated. This is why we quit. We are so focused on the product that we poison the process. The author learned this lesson the hard way. As a child, he quit both guitar and piano because practicing felt boring and difficult. But later in life, after he had become a professional musician, he had a profound realization. He was going through some old music books and found a crumpled piece of paper. On it was a list he had made as a 19-year-old, detailing all the musical goals he wanted to achieve in the next 5 years. He was 22 now, and as he read the list, he was shocked. He had accomplished everything on that list in less than 3 years. He had even achieved things he couldn't have imagined at 19. But here was the strange part: he didn't feel any different. He didn't feel any happier or more fulfilled as a musician. His idea of good enough had simply moved further away. The horizon he was sailing toward was always receding. In that moment, he understood a life-changing truth. There was no magical summit he could reach where he would finally feel complete. The joy wasn't in arriving at the destination. The joy was in the process of learning, growing, and creating, moment by moment. This is the central, earth-shattering idea of the book. You must learn to make the process, not the product, your goal. It's a paradox, but it's true. When you focus on the process, the desired product takes care of itself with a fluid ease. When you focus on the product, you immediately begin to fight yourself. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're trying to throw tennis balls into a trash can from 10 feet away. The product-oriented approach goes like this. You throw the first ball. It misses. Immediately, your mind kicks in with judgment. Ugh, I missed. I'm not very good at this. Now the best I can do is 2 out of 3. Your energy is wasted on emotion and self-criticism. Now, let's try the process-oriented approach. Your goal isn't to make the shot. Your goal is to stay focused on the process of throwing. You pick up the first ball, you observe the can, and you toss it. It hits the floor in front of the can. Instead of judgment, you simply observe this information with emotional indifference. Okay, that was a bit short. I need to adjust the arc and throw a little harder. You use that feedback to refine your next attempt. There are no mistakes in this approach, only feedback. You are not judging yourself. You are simply learning and doing. You are in a state of do, observe, correct. This is what Stirner calls the DOC cycle. He saw this in action when reading about the U.S. Olympic archery team. The coach said the biggest problem with the American archers was their obsession with the score. They were so fixated on hitting the bullseye that they were filled with anxiety. In contrast, the Asian teams were consumed with the process of executing a perfect shot, the breathing, the draw, the release. The final score was almost irrelevant to them. And because of this detached, process-focused mindset, they were almost impossible to beat. They were living in the DOC cycle. This shift from product to process is the first pillar of the practicing mind. But it leads to a deeper, more philosophical question. How do we let go of our attachment to perfection? Stirner invites us to consider a flower. He asks a simple, beautiful question. At what point in a flower's life, from seed to full bloom, does it reach perfection? Think about it. Is it perfect when it's just a seed, holding all of its future potential within it? Is it perfect when it first pokes its head through the soil, reaching for the sun for the very first time? Is it perfect in full, glorious bloom? Or is it perfect when it withers and returns to the earth, completing its cycle? The answer, of course, is that the flower is always perfect. It is perfect at being exactly what it is supposed to be at each and every stage of its growth. A seed isn't an imperfect bloom, it's a perfect seed. A sprout isn't a failed flower, it's a perfect sprout. This is how we must learn to see ourselves. When you are learning a new skill, you are not an imperfect expert. You are a perfect beginner. At every point in your journey, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. When you truly absorb this idea, the frantic impatience to get there just melts away. The self-imposed pressure disappears. You realize that, like the flower, you are just fine. But this raises a practical challenge. Our minds are not like flowers. They are chaotic, noisy places. How do we quiet the constant internal chatter, the judgments, the anxieties? This brings us to the second pillar, learning to become the observer. Stirner explains that inside each of us, there are two entities. First, there's your ego, your personality. This is the voice that's always talking, judging, comparing, and worrying. It's the part of you that says, "That was a good shot," or "That was a terrible mistake." The ego is subjective and never content. But there is another part of you. A quiet, still presence that is simply aware of the ego's drama without getting caught up in it. This is your true self, the observer. When you are talking to yourself, the ego is the one talking, but the observer is the one who is listening. The more you can align yourself with this quiet, non-judgmental observer, the more equanimity and peace you will experience. You start to see your own thoughts and emotions with a sense of detached amusement. When you feel a surge of anger or frustration, the observer simply notes, "Ah, the ego is experiencing anger right now," without becoming the anger itself. This is the source of true self-control. You cannot control what you are not aware of. Awareness must come first. By stepping back and becoming the observer, you can watch your old, unproductive habits arise without being a slave to them. Which leads us to the third pillar, the practical tools for building new habits. We all know that changing habits is hard. The old way of doing things feels comfortable and automatic. Stirner points out that every action, physical or mental, is a habit. The way you react to criticism, the way you talk to yourself, the way you approach a difficult task, it's all habit. But the good news is that habits are learned, which means they can be unlearned and replaced. He shares a finding from sports psychology. Repeating a new motion about 60 times a day for 21 days can form a new, ingrained habit. The key is intentional, deliberate repetition without emotional judgment. You just stay with the process, knowing that a new habit is being formed. But what about those moments when an old, destructive habit kicks in automatically? How do you stop its momentum? Here, Stirner introduces the idea of a trigger. A trigger is a simple, pre-planned signal that alerts you to stop the old pattern and start the new one. Imagine you have a difficult coworker who always makes irritating remarks. Your old habit is to react with anger and defensiveness. You decide you want to create a new habit of responding with calm detachment. Your trigger could be the very first spark of annoyance you feel when he speaks. The moment you feel it, that's your signal. It's the whistleblow that says, "Okay, time to run the new play." Instead of reacting, you take a breath, align with your observer, and execute the calm response you've already decided on. You can create triggers for anything. If you want to stop mindlessly watching TV, the act of picking up the remote control can become your trigger to pause and ask, is this really what I want to do right now? This all sounds great in theory, but what about when we're faced with a task that just feels huge and overwhelming, like cleaning the entire garage or starting a massive project? Our natural tendency is to look at the whole mountain and feel defeated before we even start. This is where Stirner gives us his most beautifully simple and practical tool, the 4 S words. Whenever you face a daunting task, apply these 4 principles. 1. Simplify. Break the huge task down into its smallest component parts. Don't think about cleaning the whole garage. Just focus on cleaning one corner. 2. Small. Make your goals ridiculously small and achievable. Your goal isn't to run a marathon. Your goal is to put on your running shoes and walk to the end of the driveway. You can build from there, but the initial victory has to be small and repeatable. 3. Short. Work in short, focused bursts of time. Instead of telling yourself you have to clean the garage all Saturday, tell yourself you'll work on that one small corner for just 45 minutes. You can endure almost anything for a short period. This eliminates the feeling of being overwhelmed. 4. Slow. This is the most paradoxical and powerful S of all. Intentionally slow down your pace. Work at a speed that allows you to be fully present and pay attention to what you're doing. Stirner tells a fantastic story about a day when he was facing a ridiculously long schedule as a piano technician. He had to prepare multiple concert pianos, drive across 2 states for service calls, and then return to the concert hall in the evening. He was tired and stressed. So, as an experiment, he decided he would spend the entire day deliberately working as slowly as possible. He opened his toolbox slowly. He took out each tool one at a time. He performed every action with meticulous, unhurried care. His ego was screaming at him, "You'll never get this done. You're wasting time," but he stuck with it. And a funny thing happened. He felt incredibly calm and peaceful. The usual stress was gone. But the truly shocking part came when he finished the first part of his job and got back to his truck. He glanced at the clock and was dumbfounded. He was sure he must be running an hour late. In reality, he had cut over 40% off his usual time. How is this possible? Because when you rush, you waste enormous amounts of energy on scattered thoughts, anxiety, and sloppy mistakes that need to be corrected. When you work slowly and deliberately, all of your energy is focused on the task at hand. There is no wasted motion, physically or mentally. You get more done, with less effort, and you feel peaceful while doing it. These 4 principles, simplify, small, short, and slow, are the keys to making any process manageable and even enjoyable. They are the practical application of the practicing mind. Finally, Stirner reminds us that this journey is not about reaching some final destination of enlightenment. It's about the daily practice of bringing ourselves back to the present moment. The goal is not to become a perfect chariot driver who never gets distracted. The goal is to become a driver who, when he notices the horses have wandered off the path, gently and without judgment, pulls on the reins and guides them back. Every time you become aware that you've lost focus, that you've slipped into judgment or impatience, that very moment of awareness is a victory. It means you've come back to the present. You are back in control. You are practicing. And in every moment that you are practicing, your skills are growing, and you are exactly where you need to be. Commentary. As we wrap up our journey through the practicing mind, I want to take a moment to reflect on why this book is so profoundly important, especially right now. We live in a world that is addicted to instant gratification. We have one-click ordering, on-demand streaming, and social media feeds that give us a hit of dopamine every few seconds. Our culture screams at us from every direction. get it now. The product is all that matters. In this environment, the ideas in this book feel almost revolutionary. The act of slowing down, of focusing on the process, of finding peace in deliberate effort, it's a radical act of rebellion against the noise of the modern world. What Thomas Sterner has given us is not a set of productivity hacks. It's a philosophy for a more peaceful, meaningful, and effective way of living. The most powerful lesson for me is the analogy of the flower. The idea that we are perfect at every stage of our development is a powerful antidote to the constant self-criticism and imposter syndrome that so many of us feel. It gives us permission to be a beginner, permission to learn, and permission to be patient with ourselves. So, how can you start applying these ideas today, right now? Let me offer 3 simple actions. First, try the flower test. For the next 24 hours, anytime you feel a surge of impatience or frustration with your progress in any area of your life, I want you to pause and ask yourself, at what point in a flower's life, from seed to full bloom, is it perfect? Remind yourself that you, too, are perfect at being exactly where you are in your journey. Second, take on the slowdown challenge. Pick one mundane activity you do every day: brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, making your coffee. Tonight, or tomorrow morning, do that one activity with deliberate, intentional slowness. Pay attention to every sensation, every movement. Don't think about what's next. Just be fully present in that simple task. This small exercise will give you a taste of the peace that comes from a quiet, focused mind. And third, name your observer. The next time you feel your mind spiraling into worry, judgment, or anxiety, consciously take a step back and say to yourself, "My ego is really worked up right now." By simply naming it and observing it, you create a space between you and the emotion. You remember that you are not your thoughts, you are the one who is aware of your thoughts. You are the observer. That was a summary of The Practicing Mind by Thomas M. Sterner. We've certainly hit the big ideas today, but I have to be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you walk the path yourself. The true magic happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your map, designed to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've discussed today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you approach your daily life. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.